Okay, good morning, good afternoon, being Easter Friday today. I'd just like to share with you a talk I shared in church this morning. So it goes like this. One you imagine is a mum and dad and had twin boys, a boy called Dave and a little boy called Johnny. Now they looked identical, you couldn't separate them, but as they started to get older, some things came to the surface which they could see very clearly. For example, Dave was always a good little boy, always did the right things. Little Johnny was very, very naughty. And as they went through school, the same thing. The separation in the two boys got more and more because Dave was always doing his best at school, getting awards, getting first prize, all that sort of stuff, where little Johnny was at the bottom of his class, always getting into fights, always one of those boys that just attracts him, really. So when they go through school, they finish school, they leave school, Dave goes on to be a pastor of a church. Little Johnny's not so little anymore, ends up in crime with drugs, doing drug trafficking and all that sort of stuff, really bad stuff. And one day he gets caught for doing something really, really bad. And he goes to trial. And at the trial in the court, the judge pronounces the verdict, which is death penalty by firing squad. Because in this country, the death penalty is firing squad. The firing squad. And he says to Johnny, do you have anything to say? Of course, Johnny is very upset and grieving, but no, he just shakes his head. So they march him out to the courtyard. And while he's standing in the courtyard with his hands tied, the firing squad come around in front of him. And they all have masks on with little holes where their eyes go. And the leader of the firing squad is walking in front. He doesn't have a gun, but he's leading them. And they stand up and the leader says to that young man, remember they all have masks on. This leader says to the young man, so before we commence this execution, do you have anything to say? And again, the young man just very slowly says, no, I'm very sorry, but that's not going to affect the outcome. No, I don't have anything to say. I deserve what I'm going to get. And the leader of the firing squad says, well, actually, I have something to say. And he takes off his masks. And as he takes off his mask, the young man, Johnny, gasps in shock. Dad! Well, what are you doing? You see, Dad was the leader of that firing squad. And Dad says to Johnny, I'm your dad and I love you so much. And unfortunately, this death sentence has to be carried out. But I'm not going to let them carry it on you. We're going to swap places. And of course, Johnny goes, no, you can't do that. He says, yes, I can. Be quiet. And he orders Johnny to be released. And Dad goes and takes his place, gets tied up. Johnny gets to go free and his dad gets shot. Now you see, that is what Jesus did for us on Easter. He came and he took our place, our punishment for something that we should have been punished for. But Jesus came. God sent his son, Jesus, to take that punishment for us. And let's have a look now at what Jesus did for us on that day. Jesus received 39 stripes because 40 stripes would have killed a man. They held handfuls of Jesus' beard, his hair, and they pulled it out by the roots. They kicked Jesus. They punched him. They spat on him for hours until there wasn't a single spot on his body that wasn't covered in blood. They pushed a crown of thorns down on his head so hard that it stuck there and wouldn't come off again. And after hours of being beaten, of being mocked, being teased, being whipped and tortured, they then made him carry his own cross on that raw back, which was just raw skin, no flesh on it. They made him carry his own cross, and that cross was a rough piece of wood which would have had splinters in it that dug into his back. Now, down through history, dying by crucifixion was one of the cruelest deaths that a person could go through. And God knew this, and he sent his son, Jesus, down into our period of history when crucifixion was happening for a crime, the worst kind of punishment a person could go through. You would hang for hours and hours on that cross. In fact, I read somewhere, I think it wasn't uncommon for someone to hang there in agonizing agony for up to 2 hours. Not being able to breathe properly because of the way the nails were pierced and you are strung out. It was an incredible, slow, painful way to die. And Jesus chose to come and die for us at that period where he knew he had to go to the cross. And that's torture I can honestly say that none of us will ever go through or experience. You see, at Easter we celebrate Easter with lots of joy, chocolate eggs, Easter eggs, and it's usually a joyous time, especially in our churches. But on this day, 2,000 years ago, the day that Jesus died, it was not a joyous day. It was a cruel, disgusting, and nasty day. Now, Jesus could have stopped all of this if he'd wanted to. He could have called every angel in heaven to come down and destroy all those people who were standing there shouting and going, crucify him, crucify him. And by the way, those people that are shouting, crucify him, many of those the day before were probably laying palm leaves down before him and on their donkey and saying, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. And they followed his message. Today, they were shouting, crucify him. But see, Jesus didn't call the angels down to save him. He went through that crucifixion for us because he knew that for us to have a Sunday, we have to have a Friday. What do I mean by that? It means Sunday is the day he rose. Sunday was the day, in one sense, he came back. So for us to have a day of rejoicing, of victory, we have to go through a day of sadness, a day of hardship. And Paul says, our time on earth is of troubles is this small compared to eternity with God. So that's the same sort of thing. For us to go through, for us to have a Sunday, a day of rejoicing when Jesus comes back, there has to be a Friday. When Jesus carried his cross for us, he never promised us that our cross would not be heavy and it wouldn't hurt. Nowhere in the Bible does Jesus ever say that our life will be easy and simple. In fact, quite the opposite. But he has promised that Sunday is coming. So if you're listening to me and you're having difficulties, as a Christian, you might lose your job because you're a Christian. You get teased. You might get gossiped about. But know this is only Friday. There's a Sunday coming. Jesus is soon returning. And what we go through right now is very small compared to spending the rest of our lives with Jesus in eternity. So keep your heads up. Keep your faith strong. Don't give in to all that pressure. Know that although today might seem like Friday to you, there definitely is a Sunday coming. Amen. Bless you guys. Talk to you again soon. Amen.